Hello, I'm Hal Lublin.
And I'm Mark Gagliardi.
Since the dawn of humanity, one issue has gone unsettled. With the fate of the world in the balance, we're here to settle, once and for all, best time travel movie.
That's right. Don't worry, everyone. We got this.
Podcast should have a theme song. Podcast should not have a theme song. Yes, they should. No, they shouldn't. They sound good. Yeah, but people are just going to skip past it. You know what? You're right. We got this.
It's weird that I don't know why that sounded so odd to me. It sounded like you were operating on the word travel way more than time. So it sounded like time travel movie.
Really? I didn't. I said best time travel movie.
I know. It just came across that way in my brain. So we are to pick the best time travel movie.
I love the time travel. I love the movies with the time travel in them. And
I will say, I do love time travel movies.
I do too.
It's such a fun, it's like the perfect sci-fi conceit to play with because everybody has a different take on it. Everybody has a different way that it happens. Some do it on purpose. Some it happens accidentally. Sometimes it's magical. Sometimes it's science-based or, science fiction based, but it's always interesting to watch time get messed with. Were you always a big time travel fan growing up?
Absolutely. I mean, the way we're going to do this, just to set everybody up, and thank you to Travis Holland for suggesting it in our Facebook group. It's a very good topic, and I looked at it, I was like, why haven't we done this? So that I thought maybe I'll travel back in time to 2015 and it will be our first episode, but I didn't because it isn't.
Look, if you're traveling back in time to 2015, I have a few suggestions.
That's true. I got some other stuff I need to do.
Yeah.
But the way we're going to do this is we're each going to reveal our top 5.
Yes, I think between us,
put 5 choices in.
I think between us, we can come up with, we will have the winner, the ultimate winner of best time travel movie will be included in one of our lists. And if not, if there's some contenders that we know are huge contenders that we missed, we have our side list. Because Hal and I were saying before this, we're like, okay, there's a million time travel movies. We're each going to make a list of 5, but I know us and I know that both of us would not put certain huge contenders on our lists going, well, the other guy's going to put it on his list. I want the 5 slots for my favorites.
Yeah.
So just in case that happens, we do have some of the ask the crowd version of the greatest of all time. And by the crowd, we mean assorted internet sites.
I'll tell you what, I will start, because you asked me if I've always loved time travel movies, and I have. When I was a child, a movie came out that I made my parents take me to see in the theaters 8 times.
Oh.
By the time I hit high school, I counted at some point, and I reached over 25 viewings of it total. So I think I know what this is,
because I know what a fan you are.
I still watch it to this day. It is my favorite movie of all time. It is 1985's Back to the Future.
Yeah.
It's pretty great. It had to be a finalist.
Of course. And of course it's the first one we're talking about. First of all, I don't want you to think I'm disparaging your favorite movie of all time. It has already been deemed by this very show with our guest Nathan Fillion to be the greatest trilogy of all time. The greatest film trilogy of all time.
Yes.
Simply for no other reason than The Godfather 3 is not very good. But there are some glaring plot holes in this movie.
Every time travel movie is going to have a paradox issue.
Yes, there is a paradox issue, but also, Hal, I'm just imagining a dinner one night, the McFly family sitting around, the whole family, teenage Michael J. Fox, teenage Marty McFly, George the dad, Lorraine, the other 2 kids whose names I don't remember. They're all sitting around having dinner, and George turns to Lorraine and he's like, "Hey, honey." "Yes, George." "You remember this dude from high school who was instrumental in our relationship at the beginning and befriended both of us very closely?" Yeah, I remember that guy. What was his name?" "Calvin Klein." His name was Calvin Klein." "Yeah, how do you forget a guy named Calvin Klein that you went to high school with?" "Yeah, that's, I guess I do remember him." "Huh. Yeah. Wonder whatever happened to him." Quick question. Did you ever notice that he looks exactly like our son?"
It's established by Lorraine's father that they're idiots. Parents are probably idiots too.
I mean,
Lorraine, if you ever have a kid like that, I'll disown you.
Aside from the Oedipal connotations within the movie, there's some weird Oedipal stuff in there. But simply I remember what all of my good friends from high school look like.
Yes, but there are people who I knew then who may have been very impactful for a short period of time that I would have trouble picking out of a lineup.
Sure.
And it's also could be like,
except this one looks exactly like that guy at 16.
There are no photos of him in that time except for any that he takes with Doc. So there's no photographic evidence of him. They have to go off of, and also you look at your child differently. I think you're creating plot holes in a time.
No, I am not creating plot holes. If you do not recognize, like the whole thing in time travel movies is don't change anything. Don't change anything. Change the one thing you're supposed to go change, but don't change anything else. This guy literally infiltrated his parents.
Yes. They have to get together because he throws everything off. Because he saves George from being hit by Lorraine's father.
Yeah.
And that is how they met. But instead, and that led to a life that he was keeping Tom, who got hit by a car. And then she feels bad for him, becomes the Florence Nightingale effect, as Doc Brown says. Mm-hmm. And that leads to him always being this wounded bird, as opposed to Marty ultimately helping him discover his inner strength and his confidence, and that he becomes a successful science fiction writer, which is what he wanted to do all along. He follows his passion.
I get that.
The movie is flawless, Mark. And how dare you? How dare you at the beginning of this time? I wish I could put you in a DeLorean and we could go back to the beginning of this so you could watch what you're doing and feel terrible about it. That movie is a near flawless comedy. It is one of the greatest comedies of all time.
It's a great movie. And the supporting cast is brilliant in it, from the principal to Biff to everyone is firing on all cylinders in this movie. I'm just pointing out a very glaring bit of strangeness.
Well, whatever, dude. But I will point out one of the things I love about this are the minor changes. He runs over one of the pines. It goes from the Twin Pines Mall to the Lone Pine Mall. Mm-hmm. They're just little changes that are created because of, he creates little ripples in the timeline without coming back and all of a sudden dogs can fly. Right. Which is kind of a standard, I didn't even, it's the butterfly effect. I don't know
that episode
what
of The
this small
Simpsons
thing
with the
done.
toaster.
Yes, exactly. But Back to the Future, that is my first.
Back to the Future
nominee.
Is absolutely one of the big guns.
What's yours, Mark?
You're so mad at me right now.
What's yours?
I didn't mean to insult your favorite movie.
I can't wait to make a caca all over your choice.
All right. I will start with what I think a real title contender against Back to the Future for this. And that is Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Well done.
Also an 80s movie, 88, 89, whenever it came out?
Yes, 88, I think is the year.
So much fun that the stars and team, one of whom is the biggest, arguably the biggest star in the world right now, came back to make a third one of these just because they're so much dang fun. And I think that it's a perfect little wrapped up package of a movie because these guys have a problem. They have to pass a history final. It's such a simple premise. They have to pass a history final. A guy from the future shows up with a time machine and they go gather characters from history.
But tells them that they have to form a band together because they're going to save the world with their music. Yes. So this is an inflection point for the entirety of creation.
That is where it becomes sci-fi timeline. And then there's, the stuff at the end, we can break out of the jail and break everyone out of jail if we come back later and help ourselves by pre-sabotaging. And that's where it gets all very science fiction-y. But the history nerd in me at the core is grab a time machine and go get characters from history and meet them and put them all together and see what happens. And for anyone that hasn't seen the third one did not make my list for this, but the third one takes that a step further, which I think is brilliant. And it's all of these characters from history have to create history's greatest band. And if you have not seen this movie, the guitar and harpsichord duet between Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart and Jimi Hendrix is one of the coolest time travel scenes I've ever seen.
It is a joyful movie. I love the original's another one I saw. I think I saw that in the theater maybe 8 to 10 times. The first date I ever went on was a double date. Mm-hmm. And it was one of the later times that I saw it in the theater was to go see Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yeah.
So I definitely, it is a solid choice.
Before we get to your next choice, let me ask you a question. As far as time travel movies go, Ben Acker, friend of the show, friend of ours personally and of the show, said something to me once that always kind of stuck. I thought was interesting, talking about writing a time travel thing. Mm-hmm. He said, so I go back in time. I'm not going to bore you with the details of it because that's not the important part of a time travel story anyway. And then he continued on from there. And I thought, that's interesting. Do you like a time travel movie where you know the mechanics and the rules of it? Or do you like it to just be like, you know what? I'm suspending disbelief. They can travel through time. I don't know how it works.
I think the how is important. If you take a movie, and this is not one of my 5, if you take a movie like Time Cop, the means of time travel is important because the job of the time cops is to find illegal time travelers. So you have to know sort of how they're doing it.
Or like Looper, it's only the underworld thing. Yeah.
Exactly. So you have to know, I think knowing how you do it is interesting. Knowing that, is this the only person who's traveling through time, or is this something that everybody has access to? And now we have to track that anybody could be from anywhere at any time. I don't know that I 100% agree with that. I do think there are stories where too much is made out of how, even with Back to the Future, it's a joke that it's a DeLorean and it's important, but it's how it actually gets back and forth. They just say, well, the flux capacitor does it and it runs on nuclear energy.
But it's a major plot point how it works.
The time machine breaks. Exactly.
Well, and also that they have to get it to 88 miles per hour. So how do they do that with a train going off a cliff in the third one? You know what I mean? Like, and that I tend to agree with you on this. I think for something to be, which is funny, I'm looking now at my list of contenders, and while time is a concept in it and traveling through time is a concept, it's not necessarily about the mechanics of it. And I do kind of like the mechanics of it being a part of it. If we're choosing the best time travel movie, it would be fun if we understood the means of the time travel.
Well,
that said,
what if it's my turn?
Yeah.
What if time travel was accomplished by 2 means? 1, the use of Pym particles to shrink yourself down small enough to enter the quantum realm, and 2, having a self-guided time-space GPS invented by Tony Stark so that you know exactly where you're going. And you put those together and you get the premise of Avengers Endgame, in which the surviving heroes have to go back in time at different points to reacquire
all of their movies
and assemble. Yeah, they have to go back to the old movies. I think it's brilliant. Number 1, in blowing the doors off of what we've been told narratively about time travel, which is that Back to the Future, don't touch anything, don't mess with anything. And my understanding is that the writers and the Russo brothers actually talked to quantum physicists to get some sense of how it might work. So the idea that when you go back in time, that past becomes your future, which can't be altered by things, the past becomes the present becomes the future. So you can't change things that have already happened. So you're only, you're creating, and also, as a device for the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a whole, you're creating branching realities, which gives you a multiverse. So it's just a very smart, I love all the time travel stuff.
Loki taking a tesseract and disappearing.
Yeah. You get a lot of setup for things, but also just the time travel sequences where each of them goes. It makes Thor: The Dark World a better movie. And that's impressive. Yeah. I think you can ding it because it won't make as much sense without any, it's not its own freestanding movie. It requires
you to have seen 22 other movies.
Exactly. But I do think it's so good and so strong, and I love the time travel aspect of it that I had to include it here. That's my number 2.
I think it's great. And the scene with Tilda Swinton and Mark Ruffalo, where the Sorcerer Supreme and Hulk are talking about and visualizing using that sort of Doctor Strange style of magic.
Yes.
You have a good visualization of how the time travel, of the space-time continuum.
Yes. And branch realities.
Right. Which makes it easier to wrap your head around. On the minus side, I like giving pluses and minuses for all of these. I do think this is a wonderful movie. I think one of the minuses is that it requires seeing a lot of other movies.
I agree.
Which is not bad because I've seen all of those movies multiple times. And I just watched Endgame again like a week ago. Like it is, I love that movie. I don't necessarily think of it as, even though it is, I don't think of it as a time travel movie. I think of it time heist, which is great. Like the time heist is amazing and it's the bulk of the movie, but I don't think it's the flagship scene of the movie. I think the flagship scene of the movie is the giant battle at the end in the rubble at the Avengers compound.
Sure.
But again, these aren't disqualifiers. These are just pluses and minuses.
Okay.
All right. I'll throw my next one in there.
Oh, by the way, just to give a minus to Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, there is some humor in it, and especially in Bogus Journey as well, that is no longer okay. It wasn't okay then, but our radar wasn't tuned to it. So there's stuff in there that does not hold up.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to point that out. Go ahead. What is your next one?
My next one, coming on the heels of saying that I do think we need to know how the time travel works, is just a personal favorite of mine. Why are both of mine so far problematic though? Because this is one of those.
It's Birth of a Nation, the time travel movie.
No, it's a Woody Allen movie. And
oh boy. Oh, Sleeper?
No, Midnight in Paris. I love the movie Midnight in Paris.
It's a very good movie.
It's just because, again, like the history nerd in me, I like to see these characters from a certain time. I don't think it's as strong as Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure because they are all anomalies to each other. Mm-hmm. Whereas in this, Owen Wilson's the only anomaly. But it's just, and I guess really, you know what? No, I'm taking this one out. Wow. I'm plugging it because I'm realizing now, like, there's not, I don't know. I thought the second I started talking about it, I just really like this movie, but I don't necessarily think that the time travel is what's important. I think the time travel is a means to get to this writer, this artist having conversations with Hemingway and Gertrude Stein and the Fitzgeralds. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, and that as an artist, I think is a really fun, fascinating idea. I think Corey Stoll is brilliant in it as Hemingway. I think the women are portrayed horribly generally in it.
A surprise from Woody Allen.
Yeah, it's a Woody Allen movie. The two women in his life are either, the object of his affection or the object of his affection or the cause of his headaches. Mm-hmm. Like all right.
There's also an aspect to Woody Allen movies where they're just kind of like dry toast. There's something. There's some aspect to each of his movies that a little bit is like dry. That a little bit dry toast. Even if they're very funny. Yeah. Even if they're thought provoking. There's a
pedantic Michael Sheen
aspect.
Is also hilarious in this movie.
Sure, the cast is fantastic.
And I feel like we need to have at least one of Rachel McAdams' movies on this.
So you're gonna put that? Are you gonna put it back? Or are you gonna switch to the time traveler's wife?
No, which is also heartbreakingly, the thing is, Rachel, the thing I love, and I came across this in my reading for this. Rachel McAdams has been in 4 movies about time travel and has never been the one traveling in time.
Are they counting Doctor Strange as one of them?
Doctor Strange, The Time Traveler's Wife, About Time, and Midnight in Paris. And she has never been the one time traveling.
Look, she has a type.
Yeah.
She loves time travelers.
She's into time travelers.
So Midnight in Paris is out. So now you need a new number 2.
I need a new number 2. And I'm going to put one that I think is a contender. It's one of those ones that I was like, this is a contender. If one of us doesn't say it, we're going to put it on the list anyway. So I'm going to take Midnight in Paris out and I'm going to put the Terminator in there.
Oh, you took mine.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I'm glad you picked it instead of Terminator 2 Judgment Day, which a lot of people like more, but the premise of somebody comes to and this is, if you want to talk about a logic loop, this guy from the future is sent back by his child. The guy who's sent back, played by Michael Biehn, who does a great job, and it made Arnold Schwarzenegger a star to a level that he had not achieved before, and he kind of never looked back.
And it made James Cameron a star to a new level.
Yeah, it elevated James Cameron. That was the beginning of a hot streak for him. Linda Hamilton is fantastic in it, but it originates that the time loop that a guy sends his own father back to become his father is a very weird, the more you think about a lot of time travel movies, the at some point you will find the paradox. This one, the paradox is there. It's pretty heavy and it's kind of hard to ignore. That said, I would have put it on the list if you hadn't. It is a kind of a genre standard, and it helped kind of inspire a lot of time travel plots that came after it.
Mm-hmm. And does it remind me to do that? Does it go into the mechanics of how the time travel works?
It just like generates like energy and electricity.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It's just like okay, now so that's a ding against it. Is that it?
By the way, the last Terminator movie, Dark Fate, is really fun.
Is it good?
It is really, really fun.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it. It had a lot of
Terminator movies are a blast.
It was some of that, they're not all great. Some of them are harder to watch than others, but this one was like...
I think T2 is a superior movie to the original Terminator, though.
It's debatable. It's certainly debatable. They're slightly different, but that's like saying Alien and Aliens are the same movie. They're kind of different from one another. Terminator and Terminator 2 are a lot closer, but Terminator 2 is more of a straight ahead, gigantic action film. There's more of a stalker thriller element or horror element to the original Terminator.
Yeah.
But the latest one was clearly made by people who James Cameron was involved in the creative process. And you can tell it was made by people who love Terminator and wanted to make like their sort of love letter to it. So I love that. Yeah. All right. It's my turn now.
It's your turn.
This has won an episode before. And it's time travel, but it's a short trip because it's the same trip.
This is on my list too. So we're counting,
over again.
Yeah, that's good that these two cancel each other out. Tell the good people of the world what movie
I'm talking about. Groundhog Day.
Such a great movie.
It's again, maybe a top 5 comedy of all time. It's a great performance by Bill Murray. It's really well directed by Harold Ramis.
And it's a simply executed premise.
It's the premise is executed perfectly. Instead of being a willing time traveler, although the time traveler's life is involuntary, but he is trapped in a time loop where he keeps traveling back to the morning every time he goes to sleep or dies. So it's just such an interesting premise that could go a million different ways. The original version of the script, he was like already like living like a guy. He'd already been through it a certain number of times. Palm Springs actually is kind of the spiritual sibling in that one of them has been time traveling, and it is another fantastic. I almost put Palm Springs up instead of Groundhog Day.
I missed it. Somehow in the middle of COVID, I missed a movie that was actually in drive-in theaters for like 2 weeks. Oh, but you can see it. It's on Netflix, right? It's one of the
Amazon Prime.
And I am a big Andy Samberg fan, and I'm a big Kristen Milioti fan.
My daughter.
If you only know your daughter
on Adventure Brothers.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. She's, Serena. If you don't know the comedy chops of Kristen Milioti.
My gosh.
Cause she's known primarily for Broadway, specifically for, Once, which is a powerhouse role, but not a comedy. I've done Gravid Water with her at, UCB. And just live on a stage in an improv show, she is absolutely brilliantly hilarious.
She's great.
Shout out to Kristen Milioti. I got to see this movie.
I'm sorry Palm Springs was not picked. I had to go with the originator just because, again, it's so clever and practically flawless. Groundhog Day, that's my number 3.
Yeah. Groundhog Day's great. Downside of Groundhog Day, we don't get the mechanics. That's kind of the only downside.
We don't know the why.
We don't know the why.
That's one where it doesn't matter. Like, who knows why it happens? You can presume it's because he's stuck in his life and had made bad choices. And he wasn't ready to move on from that day until he got it right, which really meant like giving of himself.
Yeah. Another movie that's not on my list that is a great time is going to decide to teach you a lesson movie is Disney's The Kid, starring Bruce Willis and young Spencer Breslin.
Sure.
That movie was a great time.
But not your number 3.
Not my number 3. So I'm going to add another movie that does not actually use time travel in the H.G. Wells, I'm going to make a machine and travel through time sense. By the way, brilliant book. I thought about putting the Time Machine on here. I don't remember that movie being very good. I watched that movie and I was like, all I remember is one line from it when he's like, don't you have books? And the future people are like, books? Yes, we have books. And he takes them to a dusty room where all the books are falling apart. That I was like, ooh, that's a jarring moment. Other than that, that movie is pretty unmemorable. I'm going to throw on a not travel to the past movie, but a travel to the future movie. And the travel to the future is very simple. It is cryogenics gone wrong. And I'm going to pick Mike Judge's Idiocracy because I think as a piece of satire, that movie is fantastic. As a satire, it skewers the right targets in the right way. And I can't count the number of times since that movie came out that I've heard people say, oh my God, it's like we're living in Idiocracy. That movie weirdly predicted things that are happening now, and it's scary. But that movie is so funny, and Terry Crews as a former WWE superstar turned president of the United States, just standing on a stage firing a machine gun into the air. Like,
yep.
And the fact that everybody, all of your information is just on a barcode. Dax Shepard is brilliant in it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's the image of the idea of this movie, for those who don't know, is the world just gets stupider over hundreds of years. Or American society. It's not really looking at the whole globe. It's just getting stupider to the point where buildings are held in the like wide shot that establishes it. Buildings are held up with splints, and cars that are on inclined on-ramps are just driving off of them because the ramp is broken, but nobody seems to know or care.
One of my favorite gags from that movie is where his capsule lands is by a Fuddruckers, and you can see how it gets dumber by how like it becomes closer to what you think Fuddruckers is trying to say until it's just explicitly out there. That is a very clever way to sort of mark how dumb we are getting. And of course, Brondo's got what plants crave. They're trying to use sports drinks to.
I mean, yeah, they're feeding their plants with Gatorade, essentially. Like, yeah, it's so fun, and it's so it hurts to watch it now.
Yeah, it does.
By the way, mentioning Fuddruckers hurts.
Are they closed?
Casualty of the pandemic.
Can I tell you what? I've eaten at a Fuddruckers a grand total of twice. And, I don't know. I feel bad for all the people who lost their jobs. Let's put it that way.
Sure.
I feel bad for the unemployed.
Yeah.
And that is where it ends for me.
That's fair. So Idiocracy is my next choice on this list. Really, we're just saying time travel movies that we like so that we can eventually get back and decide between Back to the Future and Bill and Ted, right? Is that what's happening?
Well, possibly. Who knows? I'm going to go with, I have 3 that I like. One of them is a movie that most people don't like, but I think
by the way,
really
this started
clever.
with, we're each going to have 3, and then now we're just.
That's become 5. Well, I have to choose between them. So I'm going to go with Time Bandits, which is a Terry Gilliam movie. It kicks off his trilogy of imagination, which, starts with 1981's Time Bandits, continues in Brazil from 1985, and then finally The Adventures of Baron Munchausen in 1988, which I enjoy a great deal.
Time Bandits is the bonkers one, right?
It is bonkers. It is weird. It's got your Michael Palin, your John Cleese. It's got Sean Connery, Shelley Duvall, Catherine Helm. Like, it's got an amazing cast of actors in it. And
this is the one that has maybe the best trailer of all time. I've never seen Time Bandits.
It's bonkers insane. Time travel is a huge part of it. Because there is a map that is essential to it. They travel all around these ancient Greece, the Napoleonic Wars in Italy.
And is there a, like, an active goal in mind for the people traveling through time? You know what I mean? Like,
Ken,
that's.
Ken, will you ring in real quick and explain?
Ken Bloom, everybody.
He might not be.
He may have stepped away.
There he is.
What am I explaining now?
Look, can you concisely...
What's their goal in Time Bandit?
Concisely explain Time Bandits. Concisely.
The Time Bandits are a group of people that work for the Supreme Being who decide to steal the map of creation and go on time heists and basically steal a bunch of stuff from across time and accidentally, during the shenanigans, rope in a child who then accompanies them on these time heists as they are being chased continually by the Supreme Being, who is actively trying to reclaim the map, while at the same time, Supreme Evil is also trying to lay his hands on the map, as played by David Warner, so he can control the universe.
Perfect. Thank you, Ken.
Time Bandits. Bye.
There you go. There's Time
I will
Bandits.
watch Time Bandits. Look, I'm on board I'm Team Time Bandits.
I believe John Cleese plays Robin Hood in it, in a very funny scene.
And like I said, I love me a travel through history time story. And also, while we're talking about Terry Gilliam, we haven't mentioned 12 Monkeys yet. Why this one why of the Terry Gilliam time travel movies?
Manish Tana.
What's Manish Tana mean?
Well, Manish Tana Halala Hazeh is why is this night different from all other nights, as we say during Pesach.
Well, good Pesach to you when it happens.
Why is this different? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious why you picked that. Oh, because neither of us has mentioned 12 Monkeys. Another great, but there are a lot of that. I feel like there's a lot of that genre of travel through time to accomplish one thing. There's other stuff that goes around it, but like, that's why I was asking about that before. Like, Edge of Tomorrow is one person who has to use time to accomplish one thing. 12 Monkeys is, Bruce Willis has to use time to accomplish one thing. I mean, even Bill and Ted is using time to accomplish a thing.
They're using time to steal stuff from history.
Yeah, I like that better than
12 Monkeys. To me, I like it, but it feels so 1990s. Like, so it just, I just remember watching it. I was like, it's very good, but I just, for whatever reason, didn't connect with it. And I think it feels like like a kind of a classy choice. There's nothing wrong with that.
You don't like taking the classy choice?
No.
All right. I'm going to give you my final one then. You want the classy choice. I'm going all the way back to Charles Dickens, brother.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oliver Twist.
The thing is, here's what's tough about this one. Yeah, Oliver Twist.
Oh, which version?
That's the thing. It's best time travel movie, not best time travel story. I don't know why I give one and then I immediately am like, nope, it's not going to be that one. But it's A Christmas Carol. So I'm going to go with whichever, because A Christmas Carol, he is taken through time, but in this version of time travel, he cannot affect time.
That's true. By the way, if you want the best version of A Christmas Carol, which we already decided, it is Scrooge.
Oh, that's right. We did decide that.
Yes.
The Albert Finney Scrooge, the musical? Is that what we landed on?
The one from 1970.
Oh. I didn't realize that was what we landed on. Good for us.
The Albert Finney.
And good for Albert Finney. Listen to Albert Finney's album. It is bonkers. Yeah, he was amazing.
That's just life advice right there.
Yeah. He made this album in the 70s. Like, it's like he got an orchestra. He's like, I've got these books of poems. Will you write songs and then I'll just sort of sing them? And it came out as Albert Finney's album. It's bonkers.
Oh, I love it.
But I wanted to give A Christmas Carol a shout out. Look, you all know A Christmas Carol. It's great. It deals with time. I don't think it's necessarily the winner specifically because he cannot affect time in any way. So it doesn't have all the tropes of a time travel story or movie. But, wanted to throw a shout out to my boy Charles Dickens.
So those are your 5.
I don't even I keep moving them all around.
You haven't written them down?
No, I haven't written down, but I was moving around as I was thinking them. You know what I have? I have Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
That's all.
And you have Back to the Future.
I got another one. Here's my number 5.
All right.
A movie I saw multiple
Hot Tub
times.
Time Machine?
No, Lord, no.
Hot Tub Time Machine's really fun. Specifically when, who is it? Is it Robinson that says, it's like we're in a, looks to the camera, hot tub time machine.
Yes, it's very meta. It's cute.
Yeah.
The first one is enjoyable for what it is. I like it fine. Chevy Chase is weird in it, but that's Chevy. That's our Chevy. My number 5 is a mashup of sci-fi and comedy. It is the only ensemble comedy in all of the Star Trek films, and that is 1986's Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, where they have to go back and get humpback whales to stop that weird stone tube from destroying everything.
Yeah. A great fish out of water story featuring Kirk Thatcher.
Yes.
As the punk on the bus.
Punk on the bus who wrote the song, I Hate You. But it's such a fun movie. It's The cast is great. It's great to see them.
It's also won an
comedy.
episode of this show before.
It has won an episode of this show
Star Trek
before.
movie.
But I think it's also it is their version of time travel is very weird, where they have to slingshot themselves around the sun. But then like all of their faces are appearing as like 3D sculptures coming out of this sort of water. And then all of a sudden they're there. So I kind of like the weird, like Dada experimental film that is their little time travel sequence as well. Even that feels like they were trying to depart. Same like motion picture felt like they were trying to depart from the original series and make like this is a darker vision of what Star Trek is. Star Trek 4 goes in a different direction. Like, let's stretch the boundaries of Star Trek. Make a
comedy.
Yeah, we've just killed Spock and brought him back. Kirk lost his son. We've gotten it as dark as we can. Let's just make an ensemble comedy. And it works. It works really well. And it's really, really fun.
It works. It's super fun. I would say, I don't know that it checks I think it might check more boxes of beloved character fish out of water story. Like, what if these beloved characters from this thing were in our modern times than it does because now I keep coming back to the two to contend with being Bill and Ted and Back to the Future. Like, and again, it's a great time travel movie. I don't know that it is the number one time travel movie because I think it is first and foremost a Star Trek movie. And I think we're going to need something that is first and foremost a time travel movie. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Where time travel is the driving. Yes, they're on a mission in the same way that some of these other sci-fi ones are. They are sent back in time to do one mission, very specific thing, which, yes, is a trope of the time travel movies. I realize I'm talking in circles, but this is our episode on time travel, so we're allowed to talk in circles.
There you go.
Yeah, I think it comes down for that. I think I think that's a great contender. I think you have stronger ones on the list. I don't think it beats your Back to the Future.
That's true. By the way, the movie that people don't like that I was going to include that made my short list to get into the top 5 is Interstellar with Matthew McConaughey, which I actually really, really enjoy. I think is really fun and interesting in that it's a race against time, but there's a time travel element and these like weird loops and how physics works. And just, I like it. I like it. I think it suffered from being like a major, like this is going to change the way you see sci-fi. I feel like people pinned a lot on it and it would have been impossible for it to live up to that. But if you look at it on its own, I think it's a fine movie and an enjoyable watch.
Yeah.
So let's take a break. We have our 2 finalists where they're going to duke it out and we'll find out which is the best time travel movie of all time. So don't you time travel through these ads though.
We'll be right back. This episode of We Got This with Mark and Hal is brought to you in part by Fortunato Chocolate. Since 2008, Fortunato No. 4 chocolate has been prized by top chocolatiers and pastry chefs in Michelin-starred restaurants. Made from rare, organically grown heirloom cacao from the jungles of northern Peru, it's never been available to the general public until now. Fortunato No. 4 is made by a family company that has direct relationships with over 400 farmers and a socially conscious business model that helps farm families earn more. And it really is this conscience that got Hal and I so excited to team up with Fortunato, and we could not be prouder to welcome them into the people of the world. Now, I have tried this chocolate, and I gotta say, it is next level. The dark chocolate is tropical and floral and crisp and crumbly, and the milk chocolate is buttery and smooth and silky, and I'm never going to be able to eat any other chocolate for the rest of my life. Thanks for ruining all other chocolates for me, Fortunato. I really feel like I've upped my chocolate game here, and there's no going back. It's available in 36% milk, 47% dark milk, and 68% dark, and sold in 1.1 pound bars with minimal packaging to keep it affordable. Visit podcastchocolate.com/WeGotThis.
I'm so excited this week to talk to you about Green Chef. It's a USDA certified organic company that makes eating well easy and affordable with plans to fit every kind of lifestyle. It makes staying healthier and on track easier than ever with satisfying home-cooked meals, including options for paleo, keto, and plant-powered diets. They're quick, easy recipes. You get step-by-step instructions, chef tips, and photos to guide you along to make sure you're doing it right. If you're not the world's most experienced chef, there's no waste, and it's always the perfect amount of food. That's what I've found. That's my favorite thing about Green Chef is when I have it, it's the exact amount of food that I want and need. You can switch up your meal plan whenever you want if you want to try a new way to eat, too. Now, I'm more of a keto paleo guy, so the things that I'm macking on right now are the Italian shrimp and creamy rice, the Southwest pork patties, and the mojito chicken. But enough about me. I want you to start enjoying this food. Go to greenchef.com/WeGotThis90 and use code WeGotThis90 to get $90 off, including free shipping. That's greenchef.com/WeGotThis90 and code WeGotThis90 for $90 off. Check it out today. And we're back.
Look at us playing with time because we just went right into it.
For us, it was
really
instantaneous.
For us, it was instantaneous. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's crazy.
But when we check our stopwatch against Einstein's stopwatch, they're a minute apart. But for him, it was instantaneous.
Yeah. I don't understand the reference. That's not the winner, so I don't understand the reference. Look, these are our two finalists are the original Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and Back to the Future.
Okay.
Give me your initial thoughts.
I would love for you to execute a time heist and steal Infinity Stones to try to find a branch reality that exists where Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure is a better time travel movie than Back to the Future. Because I guarantee you, you cannot do it. It does not exist. I
was going to have a discussion with you about it.
No, it's hard.
And then you got
imagine.
Combative. So now I feel like I have to even though I agree with you, I feel like I have to just pick Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure now as obstinately as if this were the Dumb Pretzel episode. Like just pure obstinance. But you know what? I'm going to be the bigger man in this. And I'm going to say, when I look, I wanted to pick, I think that it's going to be one where the time machine itself is an element. I think it's going to be one where it's not only drives the plot as it does in both of these movies. When it breaks in both of these movies, they have to fix the time machine, like
with gum in Bill and Ted.
And if you're looking at the trilogy of Back to the Future, there's similarities in this one. Napoleon is the outlier that goes off and has his own adventure. In Back to the Future, it's Biff that is the outlier that steals the DeLorean and goes back and has his own adventure. But that's in part two. And also for the sort of outdated references and very outdated jokes in Bill and Ted, I think that it is less of a contender. And I can look at a phone booth and I can think it's either a phone booth, a time machine, or where Superman changes clothes.
Right.
But I can't look at a DeLorean as anything other than a time machine.
That's true. I do want to give props to Bill and Ted.
No. You're only one to give it props now.
What is overall great about that movie, which I do love and watched recently. We watched Excellent Adventure and Bogus Journey, getting ready for Face the Music, which was, again, we've already talked about how great it is. What I love about Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure is that it is a smart movie disguising itself as a stupid movie.
Yeah.
Because it's dumb. There are dumb jokes in it, like purposely dumb jokes. They're not supposed to be the smartest people, but it does become a history lesson and them learning to a certain extent, like their place in time, how they all of a sudden go from rescuing Jane Weedland from getting arrested for leading a fitness class at the mall as Joan of Arc.
The mall montage is absolutely brilliant.
But they all of a sudden know a ton about every single person, whereas they didn't know, they were calling Socrates Socrates for the majority of the movie, but then all of a sudden they know everything about everyone.
They're on stage, yeah.
Yeah. You don't see
there's some disbelief suspending.
Look, they're pressure performers.
There's not quite the level of disbelief suspending that there is in Back to the Future with, hey, doesn't our teenage son look exactly like the guy that got us together?
Oh, remember when I asked your mom to prom? Shut up, Ted.
Hey, Missy. Mom. Also, another thing about Bill and Ted Face the Music that I love is that you've got one of the biggest stars in the world going back and playing. He's had an incredible career since he made Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. And he is going back and playing this dumb broad, over the top, silly character just as broadly as he played it back then. And it's a lot of fun. But yeah, I think there's no question as to what aside from your bullying, trying to get me to pick it right there at the end.
I'm not trying to.
Aside from the bullying you subjected me to, I already agreed with you that it was Back to the Future.
I was establishing how strongly I felt that it was the correct answer. And they're great.
I think you established it when at the beginning of this episode, you said, my first choice is my favorite movie of all time.
But why is it my favorite movie? It's because it is so tightly written and so well executed.
Yeah.
As a film.
Yeah.
And look, as you get through the sequels, it doesn't get better, but the second one is a pretty darn good sequel. And I think Robert Zemeckis has said that he's like, I think it's the perfect sequel because you get everything you liked in the first movie again, but with like a slight twist on it.
Sure. But
that's questionable
from the director.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder why he loves it.
All of my choices are also great.
Yeah. By the way, I'm paying for a new pool.
And
with one of my checks for this movie.
I'm going to say one more thing about Back to the Future that is, I think, another level, just another minor thing, which is weird that it beats Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure in this, which is a movie about music. It is about a band that will eventually write a song that will save the world. I don't remember any of the songs. I mean, I remember God Gave Rock and Roll to You from the second one, and I don't remember any of the songs from the original Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, but boy, does Back to the Future have one of the greatest soundtracks of all time. All of the Huey Lewis in the News, like all the Huey Lewis music that is great. And then you've got
Alan Silvestri's score is fantastic.
Alan Silvestri's score. You've got his version of Johnny Be Good and
Earth Angel.
Earth Angel, the band like the music just in that movie.
Marvin Berry and the Starlighters, I think is the name of the band.
It's your cousin, Marvin Berry.
You know that new sound you've been looking for? Well, listen to this.
It's so good.
Also, the secret MVP of the Back to the Future soundtrack is Lindsey Buckingham's Time Bomb Town, which is the song that's playing when Marty's alarm goes off to tell him to go to the mall parking lot, the Twin Pines Mall, to meet Doc Brown. People of the world, you build a time machine out of a DeLorean? Look, when this podcast reaches 88 miles per hour, you're going to see some serious. And that is the two of us correctly selecting. You knew the answer to this when you saw the title. You were here for the journey along the way. Did we mention your favorite time travel movie? No. Are you a Frequency head? We didn't mention Frequency. Sorry. I like that movie a lot. I don't consider it time travel. I consider that a rift where people are talking to each other over the radio. Now, do they create ripples? Sure. Is it worth watching? Yes. Give it a watch. Why don't you? But it is not the winner. The best time travel movie of all time. This movie has everything. Skateboards, dances, a radioactive suit, Christopher Lloyd. Yeah, the best.
Hal!
Oh, Doc.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I know you're in the middle of an episode, but I've got to talk to you. You've got to come with me right now.
Why? What is it? Is it me and Mark? What, do we become assholes or something?
No, it's not you and Mark. It's your podcast, Hal. You've got to do something about your podcast.
Oh, that's long gone. The best time travel movie is Back to the Future, Asked and Answered.
It's long gone. Wait, what?
I mean, look, it is what it is at this point. We're not making a big format change. We're not gonna all of a sudden be fathers to a kid in season 6.
Oh man, if I get replaced by Ashton Kutcher, I'm going to be so upset.
It's going to be me that gets replaced.
How dare you?
By John Cryer.
Yeah, you and John Cryer, and then Charlie Sheen and Ashton Kutcher. Yeah.
We're all going to fight.
We're all going to fight. This topic is closed, but there are many more topics to discuss. So please reach out to us on Twitter or
you can email us. We got this podcast at gmail.com or talk time travel over at the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/ we got this podcast. Thank you to producer Ken Plume, not only for producing the show, but for his quick summary of Time Bandits. Thank you to researcher
We can say
Kate
to him,
McManus.
He's right here. Thank you, Ken Plume.
Thanks, Ken.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Researcher Kate McManus, graphic designer Uri Kelman, and QA engineer Jen Alba.
And of course, thank you to our musicians, Jonathan Dinerstein and Mike Furman, for our score and theme song, respectively. And thanks to you, the people of the world, for giving us a chance to sit down and talk about time travel. And thank you, the people of the world, for giving us a chance to sit down and talk about time travel. And thank you, the people of the world, for giving us a chance to sit down and talk about time travel. And thank you, the people of the world, for giving us a chance to sit down and talk about time travel. Hal, help. And thank you, the people of the world.
I don't want to see how long you're going to do this.
Sorry about that time loop, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. For Hal Lublin, I'm Mark Gagliardi.
For Mark Gagliardi, I'm Hal Lublin. Don't worry, everybody. We got this. Great Scott!
We got this.
Great Scott!
MaximumFun.org.
Comedy and culture.
Artist owned. Audience supported.